In our next fireside chat, Stan Pierre-Louis, the president and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association and a Games for Change board member, sits down with Jenn Panattoni, head of social impact and sustainability marketing at Xbox. Together, they will delve into the transformative role of video games in driving positive change across the globe. Please welcome them.
Do you want the clicker?
Yeah, good. Sure, why not?
We're planning this as we speak now.
Yeah, this is how things are done. Good morning, everyone. How's
Hi,
it going?
everyone.
Come on, there we go. Thank you, thank you. I'm from the West Coast, and if I'm up this early, all you are awake as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for coming and for being part of Games for Change. I'm Stan Pierre-Louis, President and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association. We serve as the voice and advocates for the U.S. video game industry. And that means that we spend a lot of time talking to policymakers and other groups about the positive impact of video games. There's no better place to be talking about the positive impact of video games than here at Games for Change. And there's no one I'd rather be sharing the stage with to talk about that positive impact than Jenn Panattoni. So please give her a hand as we get started. You know, Jenn, I have a lot of questions for you. And by the way, her title is the head of Gaming, Social Impact, and Sustainability Marketing. That is a mouthful. We are going to dive into that. But before we do that, I think it'd be great for people to see the amazing work that you do and get some examples of it to give us some context.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go to the next slide. What did I just do?
Let's try it again.
What did I just do? That's fun. Oh, there's our intro slide.
Okay, here we go.
So here's this incredibly amazing, bright, beautiful slide, right? And we can talk about the work that we do. So to dive into my title for a hot second, Head of Social Impact and Sustainability Marketing. Social impact at Xbox means that we oversee all the different community campaigns, the visuals you see behind me. We oversee all the nonprofit partnerships that happen with our different games and IPs, and you'll see some of my favorites in a little bit. We also have a humanitarian relief program, and as we have sustainability marketing. So there's a lot of different sustainability things happening across the business. So we work with those teams to tell that story.
And tell us about this amazing slide we're looking at.
With pleasure. So when we talk about community campaigns at Xbox, obviously we want everyone to feel like they are welcome, included, and belong on Xbox. And so we lead these with authenticity and we lead them with intentionality. Because if you don't intentionally include, you will unintentionally exclude. So each of these visuals behind me represents a community that Xbox supports within the gaming community, whether it be women or International Day of the World's Indigenous People or even environmentally conscious gamers. We work with people from every community from end to end because we want to make sure that the voices are present in the room. We work with an agency in Brooklyn, actually. They're called Palette Group. And whenever we work on any of these campaigns, we have an artist from the community. We don't ask them to represent everyone in the community because, you know, as a woman and as an Indigenous person, I am a single human being and no one person is a monolith. So no one can speak for everyone. So we ask these artists, hey, here's our theme we're looking at. How can you tell that story? How does that make sense for you? And so if you look at that one in the middle over there, just to give an example, not the bottom, but the middle, that was for International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples last year. And Kayleen Big Knife, she is a Chippewa Cree. She put in little triangles at the bottom for ribbon skirts because ribbon skirts are worn by certain Indigenous peoples. She's also got Juneberries in there. Her grandmother was a master Juneberry picker and makes Juneberry pies, and so that was really endemic to her in her childhood. And those little green 3 leaves next to the Xbox sphere, those were actually on her grandfather's apparel from a couple of years ago. There's this amazing black and white photo, and she was able to honor her ancestors through storytelling through our platform.
That's amazing, just to see how people represent their perspective. Mm-hmm. And it is funny when you talk about how none of us is a monolith. Like, you just think about your own experience, no matter what your background is.
Right.
My parents were Caribbean, but there are very many different ways of making patties. So for those who have eaten different foods, like, and sometimes it's within a family, and sometimes it's within the different islands. And so you see that the representation really takes a different course. You know, it's funny, as ESA, one of the things we do is do surveys each year to look at the player base and the player community, but also attitudes about games. And we find things that everyone in this room probably knows, but we find that people still need to hear, which is that the player community is really diverse. And by diverse, we mean it really mirrors the demographics of our nation here in the US. And in many ways, it's increasingly doing that around the world. Almost half of people who play games are women. One of the things that's been more surprising to people that we've talked about recently is the age. People don't age out of playing. You just continue playing and you play different games, or you come in at a different time. We did a series of surveys, the Essential Facts about the U.S. video game industry, and this was our 30th anniversary as an association. So we're looking back at some of our figures over the years. In 2004, the average video game player was 29 years old, and now it's 36. And it's because more people are starting to play over 50. AARP does a study every few years around the same topic, and they're finding the same numbers. When we go back to 1999, of people 50 years old and older, 9% played in 1999. Today, that number is 29%. So it's always making sure people understand, like, it's all around you. Then you saw someone on stage a moment ago say, by the way, I played Candy Crush this morning. It tells you something about my age, right? Like, it just tells you the fact that there is a game for everyone, and we don't have to hide that. We should be proud of it. So we should talk about it more. You talk about diversity here, but you've also done some amazing work with respect to inclusion and players with disabilities. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
I absolutely will. So, actually, probably the first event I ever did when I became head of social impact was this event here. It's now called Gaming for Inclusion. Back then, it was the 2018 Xbox virtual gaming event at the USA Games for Special Olympics, Inc. Talk about long names. We always kind of iterate on
She
names.
said Inc. I love the Inc.
Yes.
That's not LLC, not LLP, Inc.
Yeah, so work with me on names. We iterate. But so we have been doing this partnership since 2018. Microsoft has been partnering since 2014. When the USA Games were in our backyard at University of Washington, they said, hey, do you want to do an esports event? And I was like, heck yes, I do. But at the time, I was actually on a different team. And so I had pitched that I wanted to do video games and social impact. And they're like, hey, Jen, you wanted to step up and do this. And so we actually had national prelims for the USA Games, and then flew in the winners of the different prelims across the United States. And it was so much fun because this is really the first step into the video gaming arena for Special Olympics. And we've only missed 1 year, but we have done this as an annual thing. In 2020, it was actually completely virtual. That event won an ESPN award, which was fascinating, and it was amazing because that's the first year video games have ever been nominated and won.
Wow.
And it was on my birthday. So thank you, ESPN, for throwing me a birthday party.
By the way, this is a theme in Jen's life. Like, there's always another thing that's like, it's all connected for her, which is great.
It's fun. I mean, I'm lucky to represent the work of hundreds of people across Xbox, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. But with this tournament here, you know, it's about providing insight into how, if you're going to do esports, here's how we as a gaming business can help provide insights and best practices, so that way when you eventually bring it into your programming, you know how to do it, and obviously we'll be there every step of the way.
You reference working across Microsoft, because something like the Special Olympics is probably Microsoft as opposed to Xbox or even your world. It seems like it's such a global event.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you work in your role across Microsoft to make these things become a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So the social impact team is very lean and kind. There's 4 of us.
Lean and kind.
Yes.
I'm stealing that.
Do it. I stole it from Katie Jo. But we're very lean and kind. And obviously, you know, that's not a lot of people to do social impact across the globe, because that's really realistically our remit. So we have extended teams. We have a big, broad V team, actually over 170 people now. And the reason we do that is because, you know, for example, if we're doing a partnership with 343 Industries, who makes the game Halo. Yes, I'm a Halo fan. Yes, some of my earliest memories are playing Halo. But I know that there are individuals in 343 who are better experts and will know how to make that partnership more authentic. Same across all of our IPs, and also even at the regional level. We have global scale, we have global goals, but regional attitudes and regional ways you can do social impact are different. So we have many different levels of how we kind of work across social impact to make sure it is authentic.
That's amazing. One question I would have if I was in the audience is, how'd you get your job? Because you're working at Microsoft and Xbox, doing all this good, helping Special Olympics and working with communities. Like, what was your path to this role?
Good question. So I started my career at Xbox on the policy and enforcement team, now known as this trust and safety team. And when I was there, I saw that the gaming community wanted to be stewards of their own community. And so I just pitched it. I went to every GM, CVP, VP, Microsoft has a lot of different levels, a lot of different folks. And I was just like, hey, there's an opportunity here. Let me go do this thing. Didn't think it would happen at all. It was,
You're just taking a flyer. You're like, all right, we'll see. Exactly. All they can say is no.
Exactly. The worst that can happen is someone says no, and then I go ask someone else. And so I finally got to my CVP at the time, Dave McCarthy, and he saw my original pitch. He's like, I know what you actually want to do, and this is not it. So come back to me with what you actually want to do, and that's big, broad Xbox scale. And then I did, and he's like, yeah, go for it. So I panicked for about 4 days because I didn't think anyone would actually say yes. And so they made this role. We now have a full-fledged team. We have endorsement from as high up as Phil Spencer, the gaming leadership team across Microsoft. So it's a joy. It's a pleasure and a joy.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Let's talk about some of the social impact partnerships that you've done. And you all did something recently in honor of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, June 6, 1944.
We did.
So let's take a look.
We did. So I want to make sure I get this right. So as Stan mentioned, the 80th anniversary of D-Day was June 6th. And so Flight Sim added these two planes, one's a plane, one's a glider, and I want to make sure I get the name right. It is the Douglas C-47D Skytrain and the Waco CG-4A. One is a cargo plane and one is a glider. Gliders, by the way, no engine, no nothing. You get towed behind that plane right there, and then you just kind of hope you land right. But the Flight Sim team added that in to recognize D-Day because those were two planes with very important functions within the war. And so what they did is when they added them for actually through July 5th, so you still have time, this is part of the famous Flyer Bundle 9. If you purchase that, the purchase price goes to the USO, which is the United Service Organizations. It's an organization that supports active duty military and their families.
Wow. That is amazing. Before we turn to the next one, just give you a trigger warning about what you're about to see. This is an activation by Blizzard for Earth
Blizzard,
Day,
yep.
using the Diablo franchise.
Yeah.
So
if you're eating, I'd stop. Especially those of you who are on the video. So, Diablo. If you're familiar with Diablo, heaven and hell fighting each other in Sanctum, right? So the best thing about this Earth Day partnership, so Duriel here, motioning above me, he's the king of maggots. And this is important.
period. This is important.
Yeah, Lord of Pain, king of maggots. But he did some good. So the Diablo team, they partnered with a nonprofit called Tiggy Winkles. They're in the United Kingdom. They're a wildlife rehabber. And they were looking for a nonprofit. When we talk about nonprofit partnerships, they have to be authentic. And so Duriel here sacrificed his hoard in partnership with the gaming community. It was a social activation and fundraised 30 million maggots. It was a social campaign, so there was a post, and for every 25 likes, we would donate 1 bucket of maggots up to a nice, healthy 666 buckets of maggots. Which turns out is 30 million. There's 45,000 per bucket. Don't ask me how we did the math. We had to spend a whole meeting on this once. But that is actually feeding the birds at their sanctuary for 2.5 years.
Wow, that's
right?
amazing. Well, from the undead or the dead to Undead Labs
Yes.
and State of Decay and their amazing work with the American Red Cross during COVID to raise awareness.
Absolutely. Is this not the most beautiful vehicle you've ever seen? Yes, I heard someone say yes, good. So in 2020, as Stan mentioned, blood stores were on the verge of implosion. You know, people didn't know if they could go donate blood, if it was safe. COVID was just peak. And so the American Red Cross reached out and said, hey, how can we help with blood donation awareness? And Undead Labs immediately raised their hand and said, we will figure this out, we'll help you. So there was no fundraising element of this because we actually didn't have time. We wanted to make sure that we put something out there right away. And so myself and the director of comms for Undead Labs, we went to go donate blood first to make sure it was safe. And then we actually brought one of their phlebotomists on Twitch.
That's not a musician.
But it was really fun. And then for an awareness activation, you know, not every social impact campaign has to be fundraising. It can, again, I just gave you a very good example of no money raised. But here it was blood donation awareness. We put this in the game. And by the way, Red Cross, the first time I saw this, I was like, there's no way Red Cross is going to sign off on this. And they're like, don't tell me how to live our lives. I'm like, you know what, you're right. Red Cross's only feedback was to take the blood off the windshield. That's it. That's their bar. They felt
So
that
on
was
the tires, the fenders, the side, the top, that's all fine. It's
oh,
just
that's
the
good.
windshield.
Yeah, it's just the windshield. That was a safety hazard. And I was
Okay.
like, that's awesome.
I see it. I
Yeah.
do see it now. I see it.
Yeah, and with the social and awareness campaigns that we did, 169,000 people signed up to donate
Wow.
blood. And that's anywhere that can save up to 500,000 people because every bag of blood's 1 to 3 people.
Wow.
And they've been keeping this going. Oh yeah, thank you. Hats off to Undead Labs, right? So, and I want to make sure I get this right. They've been keeping this going every year, and I've been authorized to say, a little secret, that there'll be some in-game content launching at the end of July in State of Decay 2, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to pay attention and get excited.
That's amazing. I think we've got time for one more sample, which is Overwatch's Pink Mercy skin being relaunched. And maybe tell us about that, but also how that ties to part of your career journey.
Absolutely. So, Pink Mercy. Who here knows Pink Mercy? Absolutely. Yes, I see a bunch of raised hands. For those of you who don't know, let's take a step back. Overwatch 2, Mercy, she's a healer. Her background is a surgeon. We're talking about authenticity. There was a partnership done with Breast Cancer Research Foundation back in 2018, and that raised $12.7 million in 2 weeks. That was the single biggest donation they'd ever received at the time. And so, you know, we wanted to make sure, the Blizzard team, they've been talking about bringing this back, and as of Tuesday, Pink Mercy's back for a couple of weeks. And if you missed your chance to get Pink Mercy back in 2018, now's the time. If you did get Pink Mercy back in 2018, we now actually have a Rose Gold Mercy bundle. And all of the money from this is still going to Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And I think that's an incredible testament to the team's want to go do social impact. The dates on that it's through July, or the beginning of July. So there's some marketing out there, there's some announcements, make sure you go check them out. And in terms of, you know, my origin story, actually in that whole presentation I told you about, she was part of my original pitch. And so, you know, you do some benchmarking, you do some analysis of what's happening out there. Pink Mercy was going on right as I was pitching this, or it had just happened. And so in my original pitch, I remember I had actually Call of Duty Endowment, and I had the Pink Mercy activation. I'm like, this stuff is happening and the gaming community is responding. Let's go do this. And so I think for me, you know, this is like a full circle moment, because now, like, I played a very small part in this. Let's be very realistic. The Blizzard folks and the folks they worked with to bring this to life are the real heroes here. But I now get to work with people who I've admired for so long, and to help them bring their stuff to life across all of our channels. So it's so fun for me to get to be able to see and do that.
Yeah. You know, what's been amazing is hearing about the opportunity you've had to work at scale in doing some of these things. And when we were talking backstage before we came on, all the speakers who were on, Jenn had worked with in some way, whether it's World Food Program or what have you, just because of the scale of what Xbox and Microsoft does. Not everyone's going to have the ability to have the scale and resources of a Microsoft, but what can people do in their own lives to think about social impact within their game studios?
It's a good question. I mean, you don't have to have a formal social impact team to go do this work. You can take a stretch project. You can stream on Twitch, realistically. You can go, you know, whatever you have the ability to go do, anything makes a difference. You know, $15 to a wildlife rehabber can donate a bucket of maggots, right? Or it can rehab a bird to go back into the wild, or a bag of blood can save someone's life. So no matter what you can do, like, you have the opportunity and you have it within you to go do this. You don't need, from where I sit, you don't need someone to tell you you can go do this. If it's in you and you want to go do it, you don't have to have the permission.
That's life advice, people. And that's Jenn Panattoni. Thank you so much for listening to what we had to share. And thank you, Jenn, for the great work you do on social impact.
Thank you for being such a good partner. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone.